What's up guys, I'm Dunmere, top 100 Overwatch player, and I'm going to tell you guys how to play Ashe in this guide. I have some gameplay from a friend of mine who's a top 100 Overwatch player, Afro, and yeah, so we're going to jump right into it and talk about the character. So Ashe didn't get any mini direct changes from Overwatch 1. She did get a reduction in Bob's health from 1200 to 1000, but the rest is going to be mainly just general things like the DPS roll buff, which makes it so when a DPS player gets an elimination, you get an increase in reload time and an increase in movement speed. So that's a direct buff, but other than that, nothing really else changed, right? You are, however, more vulnerable to being flanked because you don't have like a second tank to help pocket you and stuff like that, but that can be dealt with by the fact that Ashe does have capabilities to deal with flanker. So as a hit scan character, Ashe is all about clicking on heads, right? So, you know, maybe that should just end the video there, but not really, because there's still plenty to talk about, right? Because you got to be smart about how you click on people's heads. Playing a hit scan character, particularly one that's more long range, is all about controlling angles. When you're able to play from a location that the rest of your core of your team isn't playing from, you can basically shoot the enemy in the side and they're not capable of being like blocked by damage, just like this, for example. So obviously, you know, we missed the shots there, but when you rotate around to the side like this, I'll show it in a second. When you're on an angle like this, the core of your team is over on the left here, and they can't see like this Zenyatta or this Widowmaker back here. But you going to the side here gives you free sight lines on this Zenyatta, and if, you know, we hit our shots, we get a secure to kill, right? And so playing on DPS is mainly just, or playing a hit scan character is really about securing that, right? Even a character like Cassidy wants to do the same sort of thing, but not as dramatically, and a Widowmaker really wants to be doing it. But since Ashe is somewhere in the middle of those two, Ashe should be consistently looking for these also. Just like this. You rotate out to the side as aggressively as you can get without getting punished for it, and pump damage to them in the side. So holding aggressive like this and just putting damage to enemies is good, but you do have to kind of be careful about not getting punished too hard. Our Ashe player does decide to leave here and go to try and take care of this tracer that her backline was struggling with, but otherwise it's probably better in most situations to just stay up main and you know, deal with that and just pump damage into enemies as they're walking down these main corridors. Now for Ashe's dynamite, it was really effective in Overwatch 1 as a just mass damage dealer, essentially. So whenever you'd see like some tanks walking around the corner, you basically toss it on them and blow them up. Now it's stronger in that you don't have as many things that can deal with it, right? Because if they're playing like a Reinhardt, well, nothing can block it other than a shield, and it's easy to just throw it above it and blow it up. But in Overwatch 1, you would have had like a Diva potentially, or like a Zarya to be blocking it with their bubbles in Defense Matrix. So that's like how it's changed, right? Coach Gun can be used for a couple of different things. The first one is just to access high grounds, right? When you are playing from a high ground, like just to, you know, show this example, right? A little bit further back. When you are playing, well, I went too far that time. When you are playing like to control a high ground, it gives you a huge advantage, because if we were to like, you know, just sit down here, we're playing from an area where it's difficult to see enemies, where our whole team's with us. People can just hide up on the high ground and then back up further to the point where you can't see them anymore if like you hit them once, right? So you always want to try and take high grounds. You want to take them from the enemy, and you want to position yourself there as frequently as you can, because it just makes you safer and is essentially just like a whole nother angle on the enemy that you can see them from. So our Ashe takes the high ground, and now you can threaten the enemy from the side and have high ground control. And as you can see, very valuable. For dynamite, you can use it on a single target just to like pump damage into them when they're on a corner. But for example, right around here, when our Ashe player like walks around the corner and tosses the dynamite, like, and goes with Bob, it would have been a really good time also if like it didn't have Bob to like toss a dynamite right here, because you can hit potentially 3 people with it, you know, and at that point you're getting like a huge damage. Bob is essentially, can be thought of as just like another tank, right? When you toss Bob out, Bob has 1000 HP and just absolutely just pumps damage into enemies. They'll have to run away. There's not nearly as much to deal with them as there was in the other game. So it's honestly just like a really really powerful thing that you can, you can use essentially. You do have to be careful about playing aggressively, like too aggressively. Our Ashe player does have a tendency to like push up a bit, which isn't inherently wrong. It's just, aggressive versus more careful of a playstyle. But you have to be aware of getting punished for that. So usually be a little more cautious with your playstyle and just hold a high ground, stay there, click on enemies. Like for example, staying up here is really good. Anything that comes around any of these corners, you can just pump damage into them, and you could just frag them. It's very, very, very important to mark these off angles here. What'll happen a lot of times, especially now that you don't have a basically now that there isn't another off tank, there's another tank to deal with situations, like a diva to fly in this guy and deal with them. You kind of have to think of yourself as like doing the same sort of job as a DPS player. So when you're in a situation like this, your Zarya can only deal with stuff going in front of her. There's always gonna be stuff going on either side of you, and so you have to be watching for it. And so our Ashe player does end up getting dove, even though he's not too far away from his team. But he gets Tracer and Hanzo at the same time. But marking that Hanzo is a really good idea in general. So again, Ashe really is just almost entirely off of holding these high grounds, holding these angles, and pumping damage into the enemy. While you don't always want to be like on a hard angle, even taking like a slight off angle from your team will give you a lot of advantages. Coach Gun, as I was saying, has multiple usages. One of the ones that isn't just accessing the high ground is to use it to save yourself. As you saw earlier when our Ashe player had a dragon flying into her face, if she didn't have her Coach Gun, she would die to it. But since our Ashe was able to use the Coach Gun, he was able to escape. So really, really, really advantageous for that. And that's why you do want to be aware of like holding on to it as much as possible. In Overwatch in general, you never want to waste cooldowns, but Coach Gun is one that's particularly effective, especially if you're playing in something like a Winston or a Wrecking Ball. Having your Coach Gun can be the difference between living and dying. So like, for example, this high ground that this Hanzo's at, trying to take it from the Hanzo, or like trying to jump up there when there's like a Widow, or there's a Winston or a Wrecking Ball on their team, it's probably gonna end with you getting killed. But if you're able to get up there and then get your cooldown back by the time that they'll come back, it's a very, very good idea to do. So when you do use Bob, you do just kind of want to throw it into the enemy team. You want to either land it against something or somebody. Of course, if you can hit somebody, that's good, but it's more reliable to just like throw it into a corner or throw it into the wall, essentially. So it just stands behind the enemy team and pumps damage into them from behind. That way it gives them like no way to escape, essentially. So they can try backing up, they can try going forward, but neither of these two things will actually allow them to escape from the damage. So it is better to be aware of using it against like an Ana though. As you saw, I did get slept. And while I'm not saying you always have to wait for it to get slept, or wait for like an Ana to use her sleep dart, you kind of have to think about like whether it would be worth it if she got slept regardless for everything, or if your Bob would get slept regardless. So, like I said, as a damage character, you are vulnerable to getting killed by things, more so than other characters since you only have 200 HP, and you don't have like a healing ability to sustain yourself. So you just have to be really aware of what's going on. Like in that situation, our Ashe ended up getting flanked, and I don't think the rest of his team was in a position to really help him. But you kind of have to, have the understanding, like, they're saying that at any point you could really be dying, and so you have to be really aware of like where the enemy is, paying attention to any flankers, like they do have, or they had like a tracer before, so you have to be careful about like, I mean that's just unlucky, right? But you have to be careful about like what is going on around you, you know. Be careful not to waste your Coach Gun when there's a tracer pushing into you, or there's a tracer on the enemy team, that sort of thing. So the third way that you can use Coach Gun also is to use it to just push an enemy tank away from you. It has an effect of lifting you up and an effect of pushing enemies away and dealing a little bit of damage. So if you shoot it when like a Winston's diving in or like a Wrecking Ball's diving in, even if you just barely touch them, it ends up like stopping their momentum. They did buff tanks to have more CC resistance, so it's not as effective as it was in Overwatch 1, but it's still very, very effective. And you can stop something from diving you just by getting like even like a slightly decent sort of hit on you, essentially. So for Bob in particular though, Bob needs to be thought of as like a space and opportunity production type character. Like it's a little bit of a complex sort of thing, but if you use it too early, when it's going to get focused, people can just back up, they can pump it down. If you use it, you know, too late, either your team's going to be dead or the fight's going to be over, you're going to waste it. There's a really nice little sweet spot right in the middle of that where like things are getting funky. Like you have they ulted, you had your Genji ulted, go on this Bob, they're nice and split up. Bob's going to start fragging backline has to back up. This lets our team get a kill on the Roadhog and win the whole team fight off of that. So again, always take the high grounds. Like, it's very good to push up and try and secure extra kills and stuff like that, but our Ashe player does get a little bit too aggressive here and ends up taking some damage. Like, you kind of have to be careful about playing close to your team, or like where the core of your team is, when there's multiple like hit scans, or like you're not, well, Hanzo and Kiriko aren't hit scans, but Soldier is, but things that can pump in long range damage. So you have to be a little bit careful about that. And if like multiple are looking at you, it's probably better to just not be as aggressive and play more carefully. But it is super advantageous to like take a 1v1 in certain circumstances. Like for example, if there was an Ashe constantly trying to flank from this side, it's kind of your job to make sure you mark that and just watch for them and always be like angling on one of the sides. Essentially, you should always be trying to be on one of the sides. Not so far away from your team that you can get dove by something and killed. You have to be more careful when they do have like a Winston or a Wrecking Ball or Tracer or whatever. But doing that will allow you to mark like a hit scan or an, whatever that comes over the side like this, and allow you to stop them from just like pumping damage into your team from the side. You don't really want to just be like standing in the middle of your team all the time. It's usually a lot better not to. Better be marking these angles. Like even while this is mostly with the team, this is still kind of at an angle. Obviously when the team starts getting pushed back, you kind of gotta either just decide to, you know, escape and back up early, or just go to the point and die. Usually you're gonna get the most value from just going to the point and dying. That's honestly what I would suggest. You know, probably sounds a little bit weird, but you stop the point a lot more. And sometimes you just get ulted. If you're looking for some more Overwatch 2 content, then make sure to check out these videos I have right here. Like I said, I'm a top 100 Overwatch player, so I have lots of videos and things to share with you guys.